Hi guys, the interim report by the AAIB and joint investigation held by NTSB, FAA, DGCA is out.
Here are the findings from the interim report.
The pilot in command or the captain was the pilot monitoring, and the co-pilot, the first officer, was the pilot flying. Both the pilots were well rested and had passed the breath analyzer test for alcohol. Both pilots were experienced aviators with total flying hours of 15,000 hours for the captain and 3,400 hours for the first officer. The flight was scheduled to depart from Sardar Vallabhbhai International Airport to London Gatwick Airport at 8 am in the morning. There was no recorded bird activity at the airport on the day of the incident, that is 12th June 2025. The aircraft had requested full length of runway 23
And the plane was cleared for takeoff at 8:07:33 in the morning. The aircraft initiated the takeoff roll at 8:07:37. At 8:08:55, the aircraft achieved the V1 speed of 155 knots.
V1 is the decision speed to cancel the takeoff. At 8:08:39, the plane rotated and lifted off the ground. At about 8:08:42 seconds, the plane had achieved maximum airspeed of 180 knots. And immediately thereafter, the engine fuel cutoff switches were transitioned from run to cutoff within 1 second for engine 1 and engine 2. This means that the engines were turned off mid-flight. Both engines followed the command and rolled back immediately.
The CVR indicates one of the pilots asking the other why did he turn off the engine fuel cutoff switches, for which the other pilot replies, I did not do so. At about 8:08:52, the engine fuel cutoff switches were transitioned from cutoff to run, which means that the engine restart procedure was initiated. The restart gap between engine 1 and engine 2 was about 4 seconds. The flight's computer sensed that both engines were turned off and the APU door started opening at about 8:08:54. Also, the RAT was deployed. Engine 1 could capture the deceleration and started the recovery process. Engine 2 could not capture the deceleration and more fuel was introduced to turn back on. These GENX engines still need time to spool back and provide sufficient thrust. They need at least 7 to 10 seconds. At about 8:09:05, the pilots issued Mayday to the ATC. Mayday call is issued for critical aircraft emergencies. Mayday call ranks higher than pan call. It's for more serious issues. The accident pictures indicate that the flight was in the takeoff configuration. The flap levers were set at 5, which is the normal takeoff flap setting.
The landing gear levers were found in the non-retracted position.
This probably indicates that the pilots did not have positive rate of climb to retract the landing gear, or their attention was diverted towards the fuel cutoff switches. Back in 2018, the FAA flagged issues with 787 fuel switch locks, but the fix wasn't mandatory. Air India didn't implement it on this aircraft. Now, after both switches mysteriously flipped during takeoff, that old advisory is suddenly front and center in the air crash probe. If you guys have noticed, there was a gap of 10 seconds between the engine turn off and the engine turn back on procedure. This indicates that the engines went back to idle and it would have taken more time for the engines to spool back up. The report also sheds light that the flight was within the maximum takeoff weight. So the time and altitude were their biggest enemies. They were too low to do any recovery procedure. Had they had more altitude, they could have gotten out of this.
So guys, this is all the information that is available in the interim report. This only states what happened during the flight. To know why this happened, we need to wait for the final report, where the final report covers all the aspects of pilot error or mechanical error or software error and would dive deeper into the investigation.